G'day, Sports by Fry fans. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports by Fry podcast. I'm back with the great man JLo to sit down and discuss a shitload of sports stuff. Big slate of talking points. We talk a little bit about the AFL trade period that's now in the books. Jaeger O'Meara is now a Docker, and I'm pretty stoked about it, to be honest. Tom Mitchell is also a Collingwood Magpie. Very keen on him from a fantasy standpoint next year. There's plenty of basketball to discuss as well. Vince Carter has a special connection to the Sports by Fry pod on this episode, and we talk through a recent article that I put out talking about the one player from every NBA franchise who will determine and define their success next year. Call it a swing player, if you like. Some very popular, some not so popular. And then we round out the pod for a change with an epic Mt Rushmore. This time we're looking a little bit at the popular NBA storylines heading in to the 2022-23 season. So it's tough to honestly pick a winner. It may be very subjective, but we will let the Sportsby fans decide. So ripper episode coming for you. Here we go. Back to regular scheduled programming on Hump Day with the great man, JLo. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Just having some audio difficulties, issues. But yeah, man. Yeah, I'm here.
Appreciate the hustle. The podcast has been plagued by audio difficulties the last few weeks. I swear to God. Apologies to the Sportsby faithful who stuck with us, all 19 to 26 of you. I've got an update. I've got some news. Guess what?
What?
Vince Carter has now taken out the sole title of the most popular athlete to have liked a Sportsby post.
It's pretty bloody exciting, man.
So right up there, we've got the likes of Reggie Miller. We got Dominique Wilkins. Candace Parker deserves a mention as well. And there's been a few fringe other American athletes. Rob Gronkowski's brother. I think he follows Sportsby on Twitter, so that's something. There's been a couple of AFL characters too, but I think out of those ones I've mentioned, Vince takes the cake, right?
I would go with Vinny Boy, that's for sure. But Reggie's pretty cool, I reckon.
Yeah, Reggie's a cool one. One of my favorite all-time players as well, so holds a special spot in heart. Before we dive into the rest of the agenda, have you watched the Redeem Team documentary on Netflix yet?
Yeah, mate, I did. I watched it when I was very hungover on Sunday, I think, or maybe even Monday.
Yeah, I was about maybe 24 hours behind you. Similar deal Monday evening. Yeah, what were your overall thoughts? Because I left it going, oh yeah, that's exactly what I expected. It gave a cool little insight into the American or like the USA basketball history. Most of it I already knew, but as a non-fanatical basketball follower, you probably would have appreciated the doco a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't The Last Dance. Let's put it that way. But it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Loved just like the Kobe stuff. That was really
same
the main draw card. But yep, it was a good watch. I don't know what else to say really. Would have liked to hear from Darren Williams and Michael Redd though.
Yeah, I was watching it with Kieran Tate and Sean, a couple of characters. Some of them might listen to this. Shout out to the squad. And I was talking through the gold medal game, and I was like, oh, I remember this. This is the point where Michael Redd checks in and does this, or Darren Williams, and all of them are looking at me like, who the fuck is Darren Williams? What's a Michael Redd? So it was at that moment I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I am a little bit too addicted to basketball compared to some others.
No, don't be silly.
Yeah,
don't be silly.
Got to tip me cap to you, mate. I'm not actually. Oh no, hang on. A genuine tip of the cap. The Alshon Jeffrey boys led the Sports by Fry League in total points this week. Absolutely utzed the last place Rothy Raiders. Doesn't matter that they're last place. Putting 150 on the boards, 150. I managed 93 points, but still managed to also eke out a win. So since we've really talked about where we're standing, I'm pretty sure the boys are combined 6-0.
Well, it's 4-0. 4-0.
4-0. Sorry, you're right. 4-0. Yeah,
That all
huge.
changes this week.
Oh, mate. All right. Before we go to this week, how did you get it done? Outside of Travis Kelsey just absolutely ripping his dick off and going bananas, how did the boys post a nice, let's call it 50-point dub?
Well, can also give a bit of credit to Leonard Fournette, had a
Mm-hmm.
32. I think he ran one in and caught one and
He
maybe did
looked
something
good.
else. Yeah, yep. And I'm trying to think who else had. Yeah, it was just a
Surely
lot of
Christian was up there, eh?
17s. Oh, he was all right, 18 or something. Same with DK Metcalf. Tucker, the Baltimore kicker,
Oh,
pretty
have you got
good.
him?
Yeah, I always take him most years, and I'm usually the
Never
first
regret it.
person. Well, yeah, I'm just the first person to take a kicker usually. I'll take him
Mm.
one round earlier, and then yeah, just leave the last pick for some absolute flyer. So I think I took defense. Oh no, I didn't take the first defense. I took one pretty early, and then same with the kicker. Defense hasn't worked at all, and I got the Philly defense, who are the second best defense in the league, but that
Mm.
did not pay off at all, and I still managed to top score. So imagine if they'd done something.
Yep. Huge scenes at Alshon or Jeffrey. Saquon the chef, like I said, didn't come together like I would have liked. And I think last time we sat down on Friday, 9 points from Russell Wilson was to blame for that. But I've got Kirk Cousins as me backup, let's call it. So I reckon I'll give him his first start of the season as we go head to head against the Alshon or
Yes,
Jeffrey.
big
But
risk, could work.
it could. It'll depend, obviously, on what Russ's status is. But I've got Justin Jefferson, who was my first pick this year. I put money on him
He
to
was
win
good.
Offensive Player of the Year. I put money on him to lead the league in receiving yards. He's right near the top in both those categories, and is, I think, the wide receiver one. So I'm hoping a bit of Kirk to JJ
Nah,
connection can.
Cooper Cup would be number one, but he'd be right up there.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right, actually.
Yeah,
Regardless, he's amongst
he
the top
definitely would
handful.
be, mate.
Yeah, he catches
Yep.
everything. But yeah, taking a punt on the Texans running back, Damian Pierce, that's worked out. I think he's a top 10 running back, but a couple of boys hitting the bye at the wrong time for me. Have you got anyone on the bye this week?
Yep, got Brandon Cooks. Probably comes at a good time because he's been bloody useless. So
Mm-hmm.
good chance to potentially move Tyler Lockett into the spot. But I do have a trade request in the mix. So we'll see if
Ooh,
that comes through. But otherwise it'll be the DK Metcalf Tyler Lockett double. Tyler Lockett's the
nice.
seventh best wide receiver. He's gone really well with Geno Smith
Really?
under. Yeah, he's doing really well. Geno Smith's
Surprises me, eh?
doing really well. So, it helps.
Yeah, true that. I've got, like I said last week, a glut of running backs to choose from, but I've got the top 10, or sorry, the 10th ranked wide receiver and running back in my team, both on the bye this week. So
Oof.
might have to get a bit fancy. I had Kyle Pitts, who was injured, so brought in Tyler Conklin, who was like sixth, seventh tight end in scoring. The bloke dropped literally goose egg, scored donuts. So might have to change that as well. But hey, I guess this time next week, we'll either be staring down the barrel of 2, 3, and 3 teams, or Saquon the Chef will be surging towards another top tier finish. We'll have to wait and see.
We shall.
I kind of wanted to organically roll into a bit of fantasy basketball talk because we're in the process of finalizing our draft and then do NBA talk. But the AFL trade period finished literally 4 hours ago. So do you have any strong conviction on which way we steer?
I think let's leave the basketball to last.
Yeah, I tend to agree because as it stands right now, AFL trade period's done. We've still got the draft to look forward to as part of the off season, but I really think that the end of the trade period signals the end of season 2022, and we now kind of
Yep.
roll into the 2023 off season, for lack of a better term. So, just at face value, how you feel about the tweaks and changes that West Coast made? Small ones, but some changes regardless.
It yeah, look, it feels weird in any other sport. trading pick 2 for pick 8 and 12 or whatever we got doesn't feel like enough.
I
Really,
kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of agree.
when plus losing Rioli, I know we got some futures in the mix, so that's positive. Just feel fine. I am excited to see what we do with those 2 picks. It sort of looks like Elijah Hewitt and the other West Aussie midfielder, the guy who did really well at the combine.
Not Bushlinger.
The other one. Anyway, it's looking like they'll fall right into those areas. So if West Coast takes those 2, I'd be really happy. And then all of a sudden, the trades look really good. But yeah, I just feel fine about them. No strong feeling, I must admit. I wasn't happy with Jaden Hunt, but then we got him for nothing, and he actually sort of fits. So it's not a bad year to have just sat out of the madness, I think. Let you boys go a bit crazy. And the doggies and Melbourne also seem to go pretty bloody hard in the paint as well. So interesting to see how those play out.
Yeah, we'll talk all through some winners and losers and unpack the big trades. But I agree. I think Coasters they got pick 26 as their last pick, but let's call it 4 inside the top 25. That's a really good way to potentially kickstart a climb back up the standings. Like, I've been saying it for years, and I know that you're an advocate for this as well, but West Coast's culture doesn't account for nothing. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they bounced up and they finished like 14th or 13th next year. I don't know if it'll happen, but I feel like that they've got enough smart heads in the positions that matter. They've got like Tim fucking Kelly, Jeremy McGovern, Tommy Barras, Oscar Allen missed, it felt like, the entire season. So
yeah, it was.
They've got ways that they can improve. And I think adding, like you said, Jaden Hunt for nothing, losing Willie, pick 2 out the door. I mean, it depends a bit on who you were targeting. It was probably a Vic character. So if you can turn 8 and 12 into a really highly touted West Aussie and snag another contributor like some of those WA boys you've mentioned, or another Vic bloke, whether it be a midfielder, whether it be a forward, whatever, and then you roll into next year with Port Adelaide's future second and future third also up your sleeve. Smart. I like it. I think West Coast had a smart off-season is the way I would word it. Might not have been well received amongst all the Coasters fans. And, you know, I agree with you. When they traded pick 2 for 8 and 12, I looked at it on paper and was like, and they lost Willie, and they gave up 40. Oh, I don't love that. But
yeah,
I think getting 2 bites at the cherry inside the top 12 and securing some futures, whether they use them at the draft table or they use them in trades, I didn't completely hate it upon complete review and reflection.
Yep. I think I'm right there with you.
The
It was
Dockers,
a bit of a
though,
nothing, but interesting.
The Fremantle Dockers. Now, I'm actually fucking stoked that we managed to pounce on Jager O'Meara. I don't know if it was on the podcast or just sitting
huge get.
Drinking soju. I can't remember where it was, but I was saying I feel like we needed another midfielder, and getting him, like, now there's not a burden on Fifey to just be the serious horse in the engine room. Like, you can put him up forward a bit, and I hope they really do use him in like a near 50-50 split. But Akers, Lobb, Griffin Logue, Lloyd Meek, Darcy Tucker, all out the door. It was kind of, the writing was on the wall earlier in the off season. And if you were to tell me we would lose our entire draft hair next year and we would get in Jackson, O'Meara, and some of the Kangaroos concession picks, but also lose those 5 boys, I'd be like, it's probably a small loss on paper. But like Jackson, Corbett, O'Meara, they complement what Freo's trying to build, right? Like, O'Meara's similar age to you and I, but Brayshaw's young, Sarong's young, Will Brodie, I don't think he's much older than 24 of the likes. So you need like someone in that middle tier with 100-ish games, because I don't think, much similar to Hawthorn now after they ditched everyone, I don't think Freo's got a lot of blokes on their roster with tons of experience. So getting someone like O'Meara, Corbett might not fit the bill, but someone who's, you know, had a cup of coffee already at an AFL club, I don't hate that. And they've already got a really young list. So I sit here now somewhat happy with what Freo's done. They got the blokes they wanted. We got O'Meara got rid of Lob, and were able to probably still hold a couple of solid picks.
Yeah, I think it was a really good period for you guys. I think if the O'Meara trade hadn't gone through, it would have been, like as much
Yeah, I agree.
as prized as Jackson was in this period. I reckon O'Meara really makes up for the Akers loss and then some. He's a better player than Blake Akers, I think. And he's just either going to sit out on a wing or push. I don't know. Probably don't want Sarong or Brody out on a wing, but
Just
one of
rotate them through,
yeah, sort of thing. Yeah, I think that works really well for you blokes, and maybe that it'll help. Hey, Jager might be a fantasy prospect next year. Finally,
Could be.
he sort of always knocked on the door, but he could be a goer now. You never know.
Always been flirting around the mark. I think I was very high on Sarong from a fantasy standpoint after watching his finals because,
Yep.
similar with Noah Anderson, I felt like I missed him by a year. Like I had him in
Yeah.
2021, but didn't have him this year. And I had Sarong in my sights to start this year. Didn't pull the trigger, but naturally next year when I'm not even thinking about him, will be the year he pops off. I think, they've also got Freo managed to acquire, like I said, got a couple of ruse picks. They got Carlton's third rounder next year. They got a fourth tied to Hawthorn. Like they got some pieces. So I'm not too butthurt about them sacrificing their first and second rounders. They got now pick 30 and 44 and a couple of really late ones going into this draft. And I think they'll have a similar hand next year. Maybe the North Melbourne second rounder will be a bit higher up the order, but already got the young cattle. Like those type of picks, I don't mind them throwing a dart at a bloke who's, a next gen academy guy or someone that they've put a lot of time and effort into. But the blokes that they brought in are also, with the exception of Corbett, WA grown products. Luke Jackson and Jager O'Meara probably aren't going anywhere for the next, call it 5 years. Do you see that someone's gone onto O'Meara's Wikipedia page and changed his bio and his description?
What to?
They've said that now he got traded back to Fremantle in the 2022 off season and then went on to be a 3-time premiership player. And then it's got in brackets 2023, 24, 25, and a Brownlow medalist in 2025.
Could be, mate. Could be. He's a number 1 draft pick, so he might still reach some heights. I don't know.
Brownlow might be a sniff. Back to back to back might also be a sniff, but I'm not unhappy with the addition. We needed one piece. I was kind of clinging to hope after all the rumors about Tom Mitchell leaving that they made a late play at him, but this O'Meara news kind of eventuated within the last 24 hours, and they were able to get it done
out of nowhere.
For fuck all, really. So, yeah, not unhappy. All right, let's dive through a couple of winners and losers from like a big overarching standpoint. Have you got any glaring? Let's start with the winners. Have you got any glaring winners? Who do you think won this off-season trade period?
Ooh, I reckon. I think Port Adelaide did pretty well.
Yeah, I agree.
Got to be honest, Port Adelaide getting JHF in although we sort of said it, seems like a bit of a knob.
I do wonder if he'll roll there and like be good, or if he's just going to continue to be a bit of a fuckwit.
Yeah, looks like a lot of the North boys were happy to see the back of him. Grabbing juniors pretty good. Did they get one more person?
No, it was those two, and they obviously lost Carl Amon earlier in the piece.
Right, I still think they did good getting JHF. That's pretty massive for them and their future. I think Geelong were the clear winners. Grabbing Bose and pick 7, like that's just a rort. I don't know who's running Gold Coast, but fucking fuck off.
I'm as puzzled as you, eh? That makes no sense in my eyes.
Yeah. And then I reckon the Doggies, they did pretty well. I thought the losing Lockie Hunter came out of nowhere, though. I thought.
Yeah, it was kind of flirted with, or at least mentioned late in the year. But now I'm just looking kind of at the ins and outs for the Doggies. They got Lob in. They got Liam Jones in. They got.
I think Lob coming in was for bugger all. I think that was a really good get.
Yeah, I think They got pick 21, a future first, and a future second from Brisbane, and then 3 other futures. But they lost Dunkley, Hunter, Shacky, Cordy, pick 30, and their future second and third rounders. So, like, it's a lot to give up just to bring in Lob and fucking Liam Jones.
Yeah, maybe I'm a bit off on that one, I guess, but I just thought the Lob acquisition was pretty good at the deadline for absolutely nothing. They were always going to lose Dunkley. I think them holding out helped them get a fair bit back. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should be flipping that to Brisbane. Maybe Brisbane fleeced the Dogs there.
Yeah, in my eyes, I mean, I've got a couple of different winners. I had Jason Horn-Francis as a winner just after
Oh, yep.
his trade request and how quickly that eventuated to how quickly he ended up in Port. And then instantly the bloke re-signed for 6 fucking years. So he's not going anywhere and seems like he's going to be an integral part of that Port side. Luke Jackson, also a winner. I mean, this
Yeah.
Luke Jackson to Freo rumor started, let's call it 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I listened to his presser after he landed at the Dockers, and he was like, "Yeah, look, I met with West Coast and Freo, and after meeting with JL and Belly, I was during the bye rounds. That's really when I knew I wanted to come home." So he'd made his mind up fucking ages ago. But yeah, from a club standpoint, Brisbane bringing in Gunston for, I don't know, what was it, pick 48 or 47, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a snag. Like, he'll obviously just complement that forward line and replace McStay without too much fuss. Dunkley, you gave up pick 21 and a couple of futures, but Josh Dunkley's in their midfield. Like, good luck defending Josh Dunkley and Lockie Neal at the centre bounces with Lyons or, I don't know, McCluggage maybe rolling in. Like, that's a elite get. And they also were able to shuffle a lot of their draft picks to get the points that they need to match for Will Ashcroft, who I think is going to be just as good as Nick Dacos in year 1. So huge winners, Brisbane, in my eyes. But I've also got the Tigers as big winners. You know, like, they made a play early at Taranto and snagged that, and then they kind of stood pat and said that they were going to give up 31 and their future first for Hopper, and that's what happened. And they got a couple of late firsts. But if you bring Taranto and Hopper into that team, that's, let's be honest, we thought might have been nearing the last bit of their premiership window this year. Even if they lose the likes of Rewalt and Cochin in the future, like, Taranto gives them a bit more of a boost. Another fantasy bloke to keep an eye on if he keeps his forward status. But I think he could be another huge elite add to their midfield. Hopper in a similar boat. And they really only gave up draft picks. They had 5 fucking picks in the top 30 last year. So, you know, they've had their bits and pieces. You got any other winners on your list? Because I got one more big winner after the last few trades eventuated the Savo.
I reckon Melbourne. They definitely grabbing Grundy, grabbing Lockie Hunter.
The Grundy edition is huge.
Shacky. Oh, yeah. And Shacky's not nothing for them. It's sort of like a Sam Wiedemann replacement, I think. Really.
Fair.
They're almost the same bloody player. But he might be better. He might fit the system better. I think grabbing those 3 and sort of still holding on to some draft picks, that was pretty good effort by Brizzy. So I'd put Brizzy in there. Who's your one? Can't think of it.
Well, if you just before I dive into mine,
Pies?
Yeah, it was the Pies. But you look at Melbourne's outs to ins. So they lost Jackson. They lost forgetting his first name, Bedford. It's not Liam, is it?
Toby.
They lost Jaden Hunt. They lost Sam Wiedemann. And then pick 33, 43, 53, late ones in their future 4th. But they got in Grundy, who will complement Max Gawn better than Luke Jackson did, I think. And obviously you've got 2 of the 2 best ruckmen for the last 5 years in the same team. Lockie Hunter, who has had his issues at the Dogs, but on the field has been an elite footballer, premiership player as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Shacky, great. Pick 13 from Freo as part of this Jackson trade, plus Freo's future first and future second, and pick 37. Like, it's pretty fucking good. You lose 4 players, get in 3 good ones, and a couple of firsts, a second, and another pick in the 30s. I think the D's could be viewed as big winners. But yeah, it was the Pies for mine after their move for Tommy Mitchell. When you say you get rid of Grundy and Henry, a couple of futures, and then picks from 40 onwards, and you get in Tom Mitchell, Bobby Hill, Dan McStay, Billy Frampton, pick 25, pick 27. Like on paper, that's a very solid trade period from Collingwood, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I think we talk about it a lot through the year. You know, who are Collingwood's midfielders? Well, they've got a Brownlow medalist sliding in who's a veteran. Who's kicking the goals? Dan McStay's going to kick some goals. Bobby Hill's going to pop up and do his thing. I think it was a really good trade period for them. And, you know, they've still retained a pretty solid draft hand on the back of it. So, yeah, the Pies would be stoked. And I expect them to do some fandangling around at on the draft night and probably jump into the top couple. You know, they're the Pies.
Well, they've got, yeah, they're loaded now with pick 16, 25, 27. So, you know, that's enough for you if someone slips to 12, 11, then you're like, yeah, no, we want to jump up. They can sacrifice one of those 20s picks and 16 to move up. So they've got plenty of room to maneuver. Plus, they're coming off a ripper year. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of winners that we've kind of highlighted there, but I think there's a lot of clubs who definitely will come out of this trade period. Some of them may be wrong when we look back on it 2 years from now, but I think there'll be a lot of clubs that feel like they came out with a better list and a better construct after the trade period.
Yep, I agree, mate.
Righto. Couple losers. Do you know it's Sam Mitchell's 40th birthday today?
Oh, yeah, no.
No, didn't think you would have.
You know, it pops up on my Facebook birthdays. Yes, should have known.
Well, it does on mine. Shout out to Sammy Mitchell. But as a result of their trade period, they lost Tom Mitchell. They lost Jagger O'Meara. They lost Jack Gunston. Got in Carl Avon, which isn't nothing. And they got in some futures. But if you're telling me that Cooper Stevens, Lloyd Meek, and picks in the 40s is what you're going to get for O'Meara and Tom Mitchell, I feel like that's way unders. Is it just me?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the Stevens edition and the Lloyd Meek editions actually work for them.
Good for their
It
future,
fits
right?
their profile.
Yeah.
But you're right. They got paid unders for those two unbelievably good football players. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that shapes out. It's going to be a long few years for the Hawks, I think.
Speaking of unbelievable footballers, your useless sports by Fry stat of the night. Tom Mitchell averaged 43 disposals in, I think it was 5 or 6 games against Collingwood at the G. So now that he is playing for Collingwood and playing at the G regularly, AFL fantasy coaches, just make sure you add him to your black book when you're building your team next year. But I'm very intrigued to see what Hawthorn's list is going to look like after losing these experienced characters. Shields retired, obviously. McAvoy's retired. You've still got the likes of, what's his name? Luke Bruce. And there's a couple of experienced heads around the park. Chad Wingard, I guess he qualifies as an experienced head now. But gun to my head, I think that Hawthorn are the odds-on favourite to win the Spoon next year, just purely from a youth standpoint. I mean, the ins and outs, they probably got worse on the field. And I do agree with you. I think Cooper Stevens and Lloyd Meek and those futures fit their timeline. Warple's still extremely young, had a shit year last year, but got added to their leadership group a few years ago. And he could be, you know, a future captain, if not James Sicily or someone of that sort. But I do think that Hawthorn left the trade period, in my eyes, still as losers. Even though they probably made the smart, right moves for their future, they probably didn't get the bang for buck that they deserved.
I like the Kyle Amon addition. I think he'll slot onto a wing and probably be very fantasy relevant next year. But yeah, not enough going on there. Like a few other teams who I think will be in your losers list, if I'm honest.
Oh, who have you got sitting there? Reel through some more of yours, because there's a couple of characters who I was looking at North. I was like, oh, how'd they go? But I'm like, if you tell me that you lose pick 1 and Horn Francis, but you get in Logue, Tucker, 2, 3, and a future first, that's all right. Like I thought about putting them in the category, but I feel like they've done okay.
No, I wouldn't say they lost. I would say they're still the odds-on favourite to win the spoon, though, big time.
Yeah, maybe I'm just
Um,
going glass half full with North Melbourne, but yeah, carry on.
the team that I think will, I mean, we'll get onto Gold Coast. We've already touched on them. Clearly losers, but I think
Yeah,
the Saints
yeah,
um, really lost out. They lost out on potentially getting aim on. There was a couple of other blokes who moved who just wanted to be in Melbourne, didn't choose the Saints, didn't get to the Saints. They just did nothing, which is what they've done for the last since, Nick Rewalt, Lenny Hayes, Nick Del Santo, Lee Montagna, and the likes were running around for them. I think they needed to do something. I think the Saints fans needed them to do something, and they got in Zane Cordy. Good on you, Zane.
yeah, sick one.
And I'm pretty
Nah, but he won a
sure I saw.
flag with the Bulldogs 6 years
Yeah,
ago. I'm like, all
I'm
right,
pretty
what's he
sure
done
I
for you
saw
lately?
during. Right, exactly. During the week, the St Kilda boss was saying, you know, St Kilda's just associated with mediocrity, and that's not who I want us to be and what I want us to do. And then they go and do nothing, and just be so mediocre that it's horrendously bad. So
Yeah,
I thought the Saints were clear losers because it feels like for the Saints they're not a mile away. They look likely this year. They've got the geez, you're right there, mate.
yeah. I'm
They
just
have a
allergic to
fit.
shit off season. Sorry, St Kilda.
Yeah, they've got good rucks. They've got a future Brownlow medalist. They've got a future Coleman medalist. They've got a
Mm-hmm.
solid back end. They're just one or two pieces away, but they've just never added it.
Nah,
The big signing was Brad Hill a few years ago. Who, don't get me wrong, I love Brad Hill, love the Hill family. But he's not the Dustin Martin or the Josh Kelly or the
nah.
whoever. The Tom Mitchell was apparently on the books. They could have got a Brody Grundy. That there's some big players that moved and they did zero movement themselves. So
Yeah, Brad
Saints are
Hill's
the.
the
I
he's the
think the
icing on
Saints
the
are the clear
cake.
losers. I was going to say
I mean, for Ben Long to go out, for a future fourth to go out, and you're like, you got 32 and Cordy. I'm like, you may as well have not rocked up to the off season.
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, if you feel like West Coast did not a lot, boy, look over at the Saints, mate. The Melbourne team who's on the coast. Don't worry about it, West Coast boys.
And at least it feels like West Coast has a direction. Like if some people are butthurt, I'm like, they're loading up on the draft and
Yeah.
they're doing stuff. Whereas, yeah, St Kilda are just the definition of a middling franchise. And like we've said about NBA teams, which I'm sure we'll allude to soon, you don't want to be stuck in mediocrity, which is clearly where the St Kilda Football Club find themselves. Brad Hill, the bloke that we talked about, he was linked to a move to North Melbourne. So was Hunter Clark. There was a proposed deal where Hunter Clark said he wanted to play for North Melbourne and St Kilda was going to give up pick 9. And as a result, they were going to net pick 3 back from North, which I'm like,
Okay.
move down 6 spots and also lose Hunter Clark, probably an L, but
Yeah.
at least you're doing something. But
Yeah.
then St Kilda didn't pull the trigger because they didn't want to give up pick 9 or there was a future that was associated with the trade. But yeah, they just stood pat and did nothing. So I think they are, in my eyes, just for sitting still when they really needed to make some moves. They haven't got Carl Amon this offseason because he was linked there. Doesn't his mum work at St Kilda or something? Or wasn't that the rumor?
Yeah, I think
Like,
she's like the Indigenous officer or the head of something like that.
like you said, Jack Steele, potential Brownlow medalist. Max King, potential Coleman medalist. Defenders, pretty solid. They just
Mm.
need those complementary pieces like a Carl Amon would have been perfect around that nucleus. And maybe, not saying Cordy, but just making a little splash at a couple of different characters. They could have honestly probably used Jager O'Meara if he didn't want to come back to WA. Like they should have at least made the
Or
phone call,
Hopper or Taranto
right?
or yeah,
Yeah.
Tanner
And
Bruin.
instead, they just
Someone.
sat on their hands. And as a result, yeah, it's hard to disagree after what you said. I don't know if there's another team, not named the Gold Coast Suns, that has emerged as the biggest losers of the trade period. All right, let's talk about this Jack Bowes fucking trade.
Yeah. What a
So,
mess.
all right, you're you're the Gold Coast Suns and I'm Geelong, and you come to me and you say, right, we want to offload Jack Bowes. The early rumor going out there is that pick seven's also on the table to do it. If you're Gold Coast, why are you not asking for a future first? Because if I'm Geelong and I'm getting pick seven and Jack Bowes, I'm probably still giving up my future first because I'm probably finishing in the top 4 again after winning the flag. So that picks, let's call it 15 to 18. That's still a win. And instead of getting a future first, not only do they get and they don't even get a future second, they get a future third rounder, which
Oh,
after
mate.
the way Geelong's tracking is a pick in like the mid 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's a bloody mess.
I
That
feel like
trade.
all of Australia's in the same boat. We're like, what the fuck are we looking at? What's going on here?
It feels like they could have just been like, "Do you want Jack Bowes?" They've
Yeah.
obviously got the cap space to take him. Do you want Bowesy? And that just have him. Like,
Or
we're not going to
here's
give you
another
a.
like draft pick we've got in our hand that's not in the top fucking 10.
It just doesn't seem like you don't need to trade anything for like just trade him for pick 45 if you want to offload him. Why give up pick 7? It's like we were talking. Came up earlier. It feels like some bloke in the fantasy league has 2 teams secretly
Yeah.
and is trading all the good players from one team to the other and loading it. Like the rich have got so much richer because I think Bose is a pretty good player. He's all right
Yeah.
anyway.
Yep.
And pick 7 for a team that like desperately, desperately needs a
Jolt in
draft
the
with
arm.
good players coming in. They got pick 5 but they lost Rankin. Like
Yeah.
they lost a guy who was a number 2 draft pick who's sort of showing signs. I don't even understand. I mean, Rankin's a South Aussie, but I don't know. It finally felt this was the year where like, oh, Noz Anderson's coming on. Matty Rowell will get there. Touk Miller's a potential Brownlow medalist. Ben King will come back next year. Oh, they might make it. And then they just pull this bullshit.
Yep.
They still might make it, but they got worse. It's a team that got worse in the future and currently. So
I could not agree more. I'm not going to go through all their moves this offseason, but they traded out 4 picks inside the top 36, Rankin, Corbett, and Bowes. And in comes Tom Berry, Benny Long, pick 5, and a future second tied to GWS. So effectively, sweet fuck all for losing. And like, say what you will about Bowes going out the door, but pick 7 and Rankin, then 25, then a couple of other 30s. Just, yeah, I'm still baffled.
who'd they lose pick 25 for?
I think it was in a pick swap with whoever owned pick 25. Probably Geelong. Nah, it might have been Brisbane earlier in the trade period. I'll have to have a bit of a dig and find out.
Yeah, I'd almost talk myself into St Kilda having the worst one, but nah, Gold Coast by an absolute mile.
Yeah,
By
who are
a
we kidding?
pagan's paddock. Bloody
Who are
hell.
we kidding? So upon further clarification, Gold Coast gave up pick 25 in the Tom Berry trade. So they gave up 25, 36, and a third rounder, which was 56 for Berry, Brisbane's third, and a future second tied to GWS. So like almost similar to fucking St Kilda. They just didn't really make moves of note or didn't really do anything outside of this Bowes debacle to improve their roster. Like you said, I thought they were going to be the team on the up. Noz Anderson was hitting his straps. Matty Rowell maybe took a step back, but Touk Miller nearly won the fucking Brownlow. Ben King missed the whole year, which hurt him, but they've now lost Rankin. They've now lost Bowes and a top 10 pick. So I don't know where Gold Coast go from here.
I know I've just been reading that they've got to match a whole lot of academy bids. So maybe, but I don't think they strengthen their draft. I don't know what they're doing. They're just, it's a sad, I'm glad I'm not a Gold Coast fan. It's almost worse being a West Coast fan right now, but it's not. So
pour one out. Sometimes you can't account for shit management. The other loser I had listed down was the people who love stable AFL fantasy ruckman. Because while Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy joining forces is good for a football sense, those two have just been either R1 or R1 and R2 for the last 5 years. So before we rotate into a bit of basketball talk, what are your early thoughts on fantasy ruckman? Like I know Romarsh is in the striking range, but now that the dust has settled from the trade period, let's be honest, we're not picking anyone that gets fucking drafted. So what do you think the lay of the land is for fantasy ruckman heading into 2023?
It's Braden Preuss time, baby.
Oh,
Let's
you're going
go.
all there. Oh, you're braver man
No,
than
no.
me.
No. It'd probably be Tim English and Romarsh. I think the clear two now. Probably. Well, I'll put a bit of a wait and see on the two Melbourne boys. You never know. It could
You
work.
do never know.
It might unlock Gawn to play less forward time and more behind the ball, which could actually work well for him and getting more
Mm-hmm.
marks and sort of maybe a few more ruck contests as well. Could maybe say the same thing for Grundy, but yeah, I'll probably be starting with Romarsh and then see what happens. To be honest, I don't know. It's a mess. It's a bloody
I
mess, mate.
am this time last year, Hawthorn made a trade for a ruck that I was like, that could be a good R2 play in Max
Mm,
Lynch, the former Collingwood bloke. Did not eventuate at all.
not at
But
all.
if Lloyd Meek, now that Ben McAvoy's out of the picture, because he didn't, oh, actually, let me double check me stats. But I don't think Lloyd Meek played fuck all for Freo this year. So as a result, if he is cheap as chips, he was priced at 450 this season, played 6 games, averaged 60 odd. There's every chance that he bumps that up to, you know, a 15-point improvement if Hawthorn are
Yeah,
like, here are the keys to the city. Uh,
yeah,
Ned Reeves played a lot of ruck for them as well. So I don't know if he is going to get that number one role, but I agree with the Romarsh call. I think he'll be the popular first ruck picked. Timmy English, his concussion issues and the inconsistency burnt me in the back half of the year. So I've got a bit of I don't know what the expression is, but I don't love the idea of starting with Tim. He'll probably be
yeah,
an upgrade target, but yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how the preseason plays out because that'll dictate a lot for fantasy coaches.
yeah. Big time, mate. All
Speaking of the
aboard the Tom
preseason,
Mitchell train.
yeah, fucking oath, all aboard. M2 for me. He might be my first player picked in that spot.
Ooh,
Speaking of the preseason, have you watched much basketball since we last hung out?
watch the Nuggets.
What's
Been a mixed
what's
bag.
I was going to say no Jokic because I tuned in to watch the other day and just tuned in just in time for the announcer to be like, starting at center, DeAndre Ayton. I was like,
Yeah, I would love
what?
DeAndre Ayton to play for the Nuggets. DeAndre Jordan, mate,
Yeah, not
who's
so
actually
much.
played all right, but yeah, Jamal Murray went out. Bones Highland went out last game with an
Mm-hmm.
ankle, so should be all good for the start of the season. But it's been a pretty boring, preseason for the Nuggies. And the other thing, we just haven't got to see the starting lineup that we wanted to see and
Yeah,
let them get the reps in. So it hasn't been a great preseason for the Nugs, but will come good. Will come good. Bruce Brown's played well. Ish Smith's played well. MPJ still hits everything he shoots. So, well, and the one positive maybe for the Nuggets is that MPJ might sort of be like, oh yeah, like I need Yoke and Murray to open my game up. So maybe I need to play the roles. But yeah, it's not been great for the Nuggies, and that honestly is about all I've watched. Sort of checked the box score on and off. It's been actually quite an unimpressive preseason. Usually you're sort of like,
yeah,
oh, this guy's played, or this Zion's had minute restrictions. Yeah, I don't know. It was good to check out Donnie Mitchell against Philly, but it's
yeah.
been boring.
Very meh. I have a very similar take. I mean, I tuned in to watch the Cavs Sixers game yesterday, whenever they played. Yeah, yesterday, and loaded up the replay. I was all right, here we go. Saw the starting lineups, saw that Dean Wade was starting for the Cavs and Joel Embiid wasn't in the Sixers. And I got about 5 minutes in, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to learn anything from this
No.
contest. Darius and Donovan, very similar to the first time they played them, only played the first half. And I think maybe I'm, tainted by my Cleveland Cavalier love, but I think that Darius Garland, maybe not this year, but if we look back 2-ish years from now, will be the best player on our team. I think he has just that innate
He already is,
playmaking.
isn't he?
Well, maybe, but and
I
some
think he
people
is.
might say it about Evan Mobley. Some people might say Donnie Mitchell is just because of what he's done in the past. But yeah, I fucking love that bloke. I'm glad that even though we drafted Sexton, they didn't get scared off from drafting another guard. Because at the time, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I'll be going for Portland 2.0. Like we're trying to copy what Dame and CJ
Yeah.
have. But obviously, Darius is a very different player and product. And yeah, I'm very glad he's a Cavalier. I'm very intrigued to see what Jared Allen produces this year because last game against Philly, you were talking on the previous pod about how he not struggled, but just had some very easy reads where he just kind of had mental lapses and Joel cooked him or
I
he looked
dropped the
like,
ball,
yeah,
literally
just,
like open dunk, fumbles the
yeah.
ball kind of thing.
But I mean, like I listened to one of the Ringer podcasts with a bloke named Kevin O'Connor and I forget his name. Chris
I love
Vernon.
Kevin O'Connor. Kevin
Yeah.
O'Connor knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And I rate Verno as well. But that anyway, Kevin O'Connor was talking about how he was annoyed with the lack of effort that Ben Simmons was showing in the preseason. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, fair. Accuse the bloke of not working hard, but it is the fucking preseason. Some of these blokes are going to play 2 to 3 games and they're just trying to get their legs under them, especially someone who might have been coming off a long injury layoff. But as I sent out to you earlier, a big piece on the Sportsby network about the swing players or players who I think can define success for each NBA franchise. And Ben Simmons was the one that I highlighted for Brooklyn. What do you reckon there, before we dive into like looking a little bit at those pieces, what do you reckon Brooklyn's ceiling is now? Like they clearly have a lane. We may have honestly done this fucking every second podcast for the last month, but they've got Benny Simmons, they've got Kyrie Irving, they've got Kevin Durant, they've got complementary pieces around them. They've got shooters. They're probably 1 or 2 bigs short, but who isn't, right? Do you think that they're like a genuine threat in the East or similar to years past? So they're just kind of making up the numbers until something self-combusts?
Oh, they're a shot as long as Kevin Durant's on the court.
Mm.
Really. They've got some issues. That's for bloody sure. They've got some defensive issues. Hopefully Ben Simmons can solve those. But look, I think they're a shot as long as Kevin Durant is who we think Kevin Durant is. You can win any game if he's on the court. So I wouldn't pick them to win the East. I wouldn't pick them to make the finals, but it could all come together. It could work. Ben Simmons could work with Kyrie and KD. He is a low sort of volume kind of guy. Doesn't help their spacing, but they've got some shooters around that will help make up for that. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't have an answer. Like many NBA pundits would agree with me. So I don't know, man. To be honest,
I don't have a strong conviction either way. I mean, getting Joe Harris back from injury helps. They've obviously got a dude like Nick Claxton starting at center, and behind him a guy named Dayron Sharp, who I know he played last year, but I couldn't tell you anything he's done previously or what he did last year. So
couldn't tell you what he looks like.
that too. So I mean, you're right. If they've got KD, he is him. Like he's one of the top dudes in the league and arguably the best scorer still in basketball. 14 years into his career, though, going into year 15, and he's had plenty of injury issues in the past. So I do wonder, like, what Kevin Durant will see, because against Boston, that's right, I was just spitballing there trying to think of who they played in the playoffs. He didn't look himself. Like, he was being pressured into shitty. Yeah, it might have been a bit of that, and maybe it's just me overlooking at a 4 game. They got swept, eh? Yeah, 4 game sample size. Sure. But I don't know, maybe, and I don't believe this take, but maybe we're looking at KD just kind of going off
Maybe.
the edge of not a cliff. Maybe he's just going down a small little ravine.
Yeah, down into the valley, down into the
Yeah.
valley of death, into that sweet, sweet night.
Speaking of the Valley of Death, one team that I want to talk about, we might talk about a bit later as well. Is this the last chance that the Phoenix Suns have of winning a chip with their current roster construct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
It's
feel like
already
they,
over.
I feel like they may have already honestly shot their shot. But as I was writing the article and I was looking at a player who would define their success, I was like, shit, like they've got XXXXX contracted for the next 4 years. How do they get better, especially if Chris Paul gets older and gets shittier? Like, I know that DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Book may get a bit better, but yeah, I don't know if I'm a Suns fan, if I'm extremely enthused about our future, that's for sure.
No, they had their tiny time in the,
Not
excuse the
2 year
pun,
window.
sun.
Yep.
They got too excited. They thought they were bigger than they are. All those Suns fans. I remember what they did to Denver. I remember how they treated Denver. I remember that bloke punching the Denver fan in the stands. This is what you get. This is what you get. You've got the most unlikable on-court player, arguably in the history of the game, in Chris Paul. He's
Right
just
up there.
so annoying. Devin Booker's not far behind. DeAndre Ayton is hyper likable, but hasn't spoken to his coach in over a year or since the end of the season,
Yeah, that's not
or
great.
like 100 days. I don't know what the stat was, 100 days or something, but
Long enough.
oh, like literally they haven't spoken. And it doesn't look like DeAndre wants to speak a word to the man. They're in trouble. And it's not going to be their year. They played Chris Paul 28 minutes last game against Denver. He played the most minutes on the court in the
Fuck.
preseason. Game 3, oh, it might have been game 4 for them, but game 3 of the preseason. Like they're stuffed. Monty Williams he's losing his edge. I thought James Jones,
Yep.
the GM,
Jonesy.
thought he knew what he was doing, but he doesn't. Clearly, it's just dysfunction, and that's what happens with Chris Paul throughout his career. Everywhere he's gone has become dysfunctional. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but they're stuffed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree that I thought they had a 2 year window and last year was the end of year 2. So I don't expect them to make a shitload of waves or to win the chip or to push for a finals berth or even probably a conference finals berth. I mean, they may prove me wrong, especially if Chris Paul's healthy at the pointy end of the season. He was the bloke that I identified as the guy in Phoenix who will define their success. You kind of forget in the closeout game against the Pels, he went 14 of 14, made his only 3, went 6 of 6 from the line, had 33 points. I don't know if those maths adds up. I could be wrong, but he was like quintessential in their success early in the playoffs. And then, like he does every year, just kind of crumbled and fell by the wayside. So I think that I agree with you. Phoenix missed their tiny moment in the sun and their little window. Maybe they'll prove us wrong and they'll go on a bit of a surge in the postseason, but I don't expect them to be the number 1 seed. What they win last year, 64 games?
It was a
Something
lot.
like that?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a lot. It was a lot.
I think Monty Williams himself has said, you know what, probably going for the franchise record and gunning for that many wins cost them in the playoffs. So, they're a bit wiser in that sense, but I still think that they missed the window.
Big time. Yeah, I'm right on board with that. And
All
I'm
right.
great. I'm glad.
Yeah. If there's anyone who would be fucking celebrating Phoenix Suns' ineptitude, it would be you.
I hate them.
Did you cast your eyes over aforementioned article about
I'm on it right now, mate. I'm
the one
scrolling
player
right
from
now.
every NBA team that will define success in 2022-23?
Oh, I'm scrolling.
All right.
Got some. I disagree with some.
Okay. So
We're gonna roll through.
yeah, I reckon. And
Just quick ones.
I kind of want to go through quick because I want to get to the Mount Rushmore, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to just be like, right, Kevin Durant is the person that will define Brooklyn's
Yeah,
success, or
yeah.
LeBron is important to the Lakers. I tried to go a little bit off kilter, and there's a couple that I was like, this is a reach, but I'm doubling down on it now. But
The
hey,
Bucks,
give
yeah.
give me your opinion. Give me like what stands out from you as you swing through.
Atlanta, good. Boston, pretty good. Brooklyn, good. Charlotte, hmm. I don't know. Do you want me to read the name?
No, no, no. And you know what? For the people that are listening to good, I'll throw the link to the article in the episode. But yeah, like I said, I tried to go a little bit off script with some of them. I
I
wanted to
would
go with
change the
swing players. I defined it. Go on, you change
the Bulls player. The Mavs, I probably wouldn't. There's no one to change it to, but I don't know if
who would
that's
you
the
change the Bulls player to?
Lonzo. Lonzo.
Oh,
If he can get on the court at the end of the year, that
yeah.
changes a lot for them.
For
Yeah.
reference, I said DeMar because of his MVP caliber or contextual season that he had a year ago. But I think
Yeah.
the writing's already on the wall that Lonzo's going to miss the year. So I was like, or at least a big chunk of time. So I left him off
Yeah.
the script. But yep, keep rolling.
Detroit's one. That's a bit of just like I don't know. I
Well,
would
I nearly
probably pick,
did Bojan Bogdanovic, who they traded for, but I thought there were moments last year before Isaiah Stewart became famous for trying to fight LeBron that I was like, man, this dude looks like
good player.
he looked like this is going to be a weird reference, but he looked like Nate Jawai at the peak of his powers in the NBL. like
Okay.
like just a big beefy dude that just no one could really like. I don't want to say Shaq because no one's like Shaq, but yeah, he was just couldn't be physically stopped when he was trying to do his things, but fouled like a motherfucker. So if he can get his fouls down, I reckon he could be a huge factor. Otherwise, fuck him off and start Jalen Duren, the bloke that they drafted, I reckon.
Yeah, I think with teams like the Rockets, Detroit, you could argue, the Kings,
Houston.
yeah, I think the rookies or the second year players taking a leap. I think for them it's Cade or Jaden. But I see what you're saying with that one. Not bad. They're not winning, so if Isaiah Stewart was playing well in 3 years' time, you might be like, oh, okay, well, hang on, this is important, but I don't. He's not important enough right now.
Yeah,
I
fair,
changed the
fair.
Warriors one as well, actually. I do like Kaminga. Big year for him. He's important. But I think James Wiseman is the one. James
Yeah.
Wiseman can get healthy and work within their team. That's massive. They need someone. Draymond Green did a good job against Yoke. They need someone to be able to just at least quell or, provide a
Kevon
presence
Looney
on.
was pretty good in the playoffs.
We didn't play on Jokic though, so Draymond Green
Yeah, but
guarded Jokic.
I don't think
Oh,
Wiseman could either.
that's what I'm talking about. Well, he probably will. Like he's got the physical tools to guard the Giannis's, depending on where Giannis plays. But those
The
big important
tools, yeah,
bodies,
yeah, I get what you're saying
they
about the
have to
physical
run
tools.
through to get back to the title. I would pick Wiseman over Kaminga. Don't mind it though. Houston, well done. Indiana, is that? Have you chosen Miles Turner because he might get traded? Yep. Okay. Well, then that's fair. Yep.
Yep.
Kawhi, obvious. LA. Yep. Well done. Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, that's a good one too. Jaren Jackson. I also would have been tempted to say Bane, because he needs to recreate what he did last year for them to sort of get back to where they got to. You know what you're getting from Jar.
Yep.
Jaren Jackson, he's one of the better defenders in the league if he's on. He was on and off. So I
Do you
see why
know?
he could definitely swing.
Yeah. Do you know how many games he played last year? I mean, you may have read the little snippet, but
Oh, I would say about half.
yeah. See, I said exactly the same. The dude only missed 4 games last year.
Yeah, but he went missing in 34. So,
Well
but
played. Yep. Okay.
I agree. If he plays well, they'll go well. But I think Desmond Bain as well would jump out. The Milwaukee Bucks one is funny
yeah.
to
Okay.
me. Go on, why don't you reel this one off for us, mate?
So the reason that I picked Brook Lopez as the swing factor because let's be honest, you know you're getting from Drew, you know you're getting from Giannis, and if he's healthy, you know you're getting from Chris Middleton. Grayson Allen probably not going to dramatically improve a shitload, but when Brook Lopez was at the peak of his powers as like a stretch five, that's when the Bucks were winning a fucking chip. So they had Bobby Portis play that role for a lot of last year because Lopez was hurt. I think he only played a dozen or so games.
Mm.
And even in the playoffs, he wasn't the same, but he looked almost at like 80% of his powers. I know I'm using that reference a lot, but I think Brook Lopez, if he can just be the floor spacer as a big, like he's never rebounded a shitload, so he doesn't need to be near the rim. Like Giannis is going to average 13 fucking boards. Chris Middleton probably averages 6 or 7 himself. So I think if they just get Lopez, who has dipped a bit from a three-point shooting context as a Buck, but like in his time as a Laker and a net, he was like, near 40% three-point shooter, which is elite for a big man. So if they could just kind of play him a bit more like what Maxi Kleber plays, I guess, if he could play that role and has been able to defend the rim, especially when Giannis is off the floor, I feel like that would go a long way because they're not getting outside sources to come in and improve that team. Like they have their team. They're just like, yeah, no, we back ourselves. We're gearing up to go again. So that's kind of why I led towards Lopez. And to be honest, no one else on the roster like stood out as a glaring swing factor other than Giannis.
Yeah, it's a funny pick, but you're probably right, really. The rest of them look all right. I think I would, like we were saying about Detroit, I would change Orlando's to Paolo because how well they do, not how well they do, how good their season is based on how well he kind of goes. Does he look like he was worth the number 1 draft pick? And can he play good enough to go all right, but also bad enough that they can get Victor?
Yep.
So
I'll be honest.
I
Bit
think
of
the rest are on the
context,
money.
Peek behind the lens. I'd already picked Jabari Smith Jr., who was the 3rd pick. I thought about picking Jaden Ivey, but then pivoted. And then I already had picked Keegan Murray as the Kings bloke. So I'm like, I can't have the 1st, 3rd, and 4th bloke. So, and I think, to be honest, like Cole Anthony last year from a stats perspective, like lit it up. But if you like watched him play basketball, you're like, is this bloke like kind of Russell Westbrook light? Is this like really contributing to winning? And I think if he was able to be deployed as like an occasional starter or a spark plug off the bench, as I said, rather than he was their leading scorer last year. I don't think he'll do that again. I think Franz or Paolo will claim that title. But if he's playing like he thinks he's their leading scorer, that might be detrimental to the team. And you got no Markel Fultz. Let's be honest, that bloke can't stay healthy. Jalen Suggs has a left knee capsule sprain and a bone bruise. So he's not coming back anytime soon. So it'll just be keys back in Cole Anthony's hands. Yeah, I said James Harden for the Sixers. A couple of other characters I've already mentioned. Jeremy Grant, I'll be intrigued to see what he does with the Trailblazers. Like he's gone from being a role player with OKC and Denver and then just very quickly thrown the keys to the franchise and every shot he wants in Detroit. And Kristaps for the Wizards, his points per game looked good, but he didn't actually play with Bradley Beal. So I'm like, if he and Beal can form some chemistry and look good with Kuzma and Will Barton and some other pieces complementing it, we may, like I last week predicted the Wizards over. They may be, capable of producing a winning season.
Yeah, no, I like most of them from there on out. But there's a whole lot of teams I'm scrolling past, like Jeremy Grant. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
God. There's some really average NBA stories in this season. That's what I'll tell you, Alex.
I think as we roll into this year, we may see the biggest divide between the top half and the bottom half of the league. Speaking of stories, I think it's time to dive into the Rushmore, the Mount. I stand by it after watching the Redeem team and talking about the gold medal performance, which was my last pick in the Kobe draft. That's easily my favorite Mount Rushmore ever. But this might be the most excited one I've been going into because I have no idea where either of us are going.
Yeah. Yep. This could go anywhere.
We are drafting the biggest NBA storylines heading in to 2022-23 season. For context, last week, the right guy won. Let's just say that.
Yep.
You took out 75% of the votes, taking the head-to-head ledger back to 11-8. So well done, my friend.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Which I'll be honest, yeah, deserving winner. I think I said that, so I made my last fucking pick. But anyway, yeah, this one was tricky because obviously going into it, I knew I had the number one pick, so I didn't really know which direction to go in. But I think, as I've said, there's going to be the biggest divide from top to bottom in the NBA. The middle is going to be as clear as day. There's going to be teams that are going one direction, gunning towards a championship, and are really gearing up for a run at it. And clearly, we know what the teams that are going that way are aiming for. And as a result, I think that the number one storyline in next season will be the tanking for Victor Wembanyama. I don't think there will be 3 days in the basketball world where this topic doesn't get mentioned. Like this bloke, I know it's a lot of hyperbole, me saying he's the greatest talent since LeBron, but I stand by it. I think he is just like Kevin Durant with 6 extra inches. Like I think this dude is a genuine generational changing character. And as we continue to see his highlights playing for France, I think that the tanking for Victor Wembanyama, I've seen Loserama for Wembanyama. I've seen all sorts of other funny play on words, but I think the tanking calls and the, we might not be even looking at the top 6 teams in the NBA. They might be looking at the bottom 6 and just watching that closer towards the end of the year. So that's where I'm going with pick number 1. I think that'll be the biggest talking point.
Oh, yep. There's no real clear number 1, and it's also subjective. So not bad. That was on my list. Would have been in my top 8 for sure. I'm going to go up to the other end of the NBA. I'm going to go to the winner's side, or the potential winner's side.
Good pivot.
And you've highlighted this man in your article. Go check it out. It's a good read, guys. I'm going to go with, can Kawhi play enough games to boost the Clips to a championship? And to be honest, you could almost put Kawhi and Paul George in this category. Can those 2 superstars play enough? But will Kawhi come back healthy enough and impactful enough and be the same Kawhi to boost the Clips up to the top of the standings like everyone's saying they will be? Will this be the Clippers' year over the Lakers? Yada, yada, yada. So it's a tricky one. Who knows? But I'll take Kawhi. Can he play enough? How's he come back? What's he look like?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that have, some call it deserving, I don't, questions over like if he can be the same dude that we saw play for Toronto. And I mean, like, who am I to tell you that that's going to be the case? He's going to be fit and firing. Also on my list, good pick. It was high up on my list as well, but there's a couple I had higher, including the next one that I'll take. Similar, somewhat stratosphere, but I am just fascinated to see how Ben Simmons fits with the Brooklyn Nets. And like there's been already, you might have seen the video in the last 24 hours of him. It genuinely just looks like he's fucking around at a shooting on like a hoop in a park and he airballs a shot. But there's also some people that are like, is he trying to pass that? I don't think so. But like his jump shot's already a talking point. His effort in the preseason, as we've talked about, is already a talking point. So if we get to the middle of January, middle of December, and he's had enough, maybe he's just like, nah, mental health, or my back sore again, or I'm not playing. Like that, could that happen again? Or will he really buy in and we're like, oh, fuck, the Brooklyn Nets are 37-8. And why? Obviously, they have 3 all-star players. Why didn't we consider them as the best team in the East? So, yeah, I'm going with Ben Simmons's. And, like, it's not necessarily even revolving around Kyrie or KD, but Ben Simmons's fit in Brooklyn.
Not bad one. I'm going to go for another dysfunctional team. Not traditionally dysfunctional, and in fact, you would almost say the benchmark for what you think a functional championship team should look like. But coached by a man who's not, what's the word? He understand. He's been in dysfunctional championship sides. He's then gone on to run about as good of a side as has existed in history. But now, boy, it's getting dark in those Warrior locker rooms. What the hell? What the hell's going on? How's that going to play out? Can Jordan Poole and Draymond Green put this behind them? Is this going to hang over their season? Is one of them going to get traded? So I'm going to go the sort of dysfunction in the Warriors, in the Warriors roster between some superstar players.
Yep, I like it. I will label it Warriors dysfunction. Was literally next on my board, so well done.
Well done.
Okay, I've got 3 in my sights, and I feel like I can get 2 of them moving forward.
Okay. Well, you literally, of course you will.
Well, you might. Oh yeah, touche. Yep. Oh yeah, no, I will. Okay, so which one do
You
I
get
think
this
you might
pick,
take?
and then I get one, and then you get one. That's
I'm
2 out of the
taking.
3.
Yep, touche. I'm taking. It will be a storyline and a talking point for a very small period of time, but when we hit the end of the season, it will be. Where are we? Pick 5. It'll be a top 5 talking point, bar none. LeBron's quest to be the all-time league's leading scorer, because
it's a good one.
at this point he's going to hit it late February, around the same time that we are conveniently in America. So I think, it's not making a lot of headlines or talking points now, but by the time we get closer to All-Star break, everyone will be talking about when LeBron breaks the record.
Okay. Yep, that's a good one. I do like that. This one's dropped off my radar a little. Actually, you know what? Because of that, I'm going to wait and hope it's around in the next one. All right. Well, I think this one. Actually, this is big. This is big for the Western Conference, and it's. What's the deal with Zion?
Yeah, that was one of mine. Yep, that was my.
Are we getting the Zion that we saw before his foot stuff? Because if we are, they could win the West. They could win the whole thing. Let's be honest. They've got a really interesting mix. They've got 3 20-point per game scorers, plus they could all average 20. They couldn't all, but they're all 25-point per game scoring kind of guys. They've got good defense. Willie Green turned it around. They've got a deep roster. I like their other bigs. But if Zion Williamson can be the 26 and 8 guy that he was when he made the All-Star team, boy, New Orleans is going to be interesting, which is interesting because we're going to New Orleans this next year. So let's get all aboard the Zion train at Mardi Gras and get some beads and have a Smurf and have a hurricane and have a good time.
Enjoy watching Zion, hopefully at the peak of his powers. Yeah, look, I said that there was 2 of the 3 that I wanted to get. I'll be honest, it was 2, and that one was the second one, because I'm looking now at the other couple and I'm like, I feel like there's a little bit of a dip. I'm going with my final pick just for a little bit of low-hanging fruit. I've already made a Lakers pick, but I'm also very intrigued to see what the fuck happens with Russell Westbrook. Maybe he plays out the year with the Lakers and everyone's like, yeah, you know what? That kind of worked. Maybe he gets traded and bought out and he's out of the league. Maybe he gets traded and becomes a fucking star playing for the tanking Pacers. But I'm very intrigued to see how Russell Westbrook, in particular's year, plays out, because that'll have ripple effects through the rest of the Lakers, who are clearly one of the most popular teams in the entire NBA.
Yeah, great to see the Lakers down for a while. Good pick.
Yeah, welcome change.
Yeah, I had what's the Lakers deal? That was what I had written down. So good one. Oh, okay. This is tricky. I've just sort of seen what the story. Okay, so I'll talk it through. I wanted to pick, will the Celtics have a coach? But I've seen that Joker's out for the year, which is going to be huge for the Celtics.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to pick that one now that they've announced a replacement. kind of tempted to go, when will Monty talk to DeAndre? That's a pretty good one, I reckon. But I think that another one, big implications on the West, big implications for the Nuggets. I think it's all about the Gobert fit in
Yeah,
in
on my list.
Minnesota. Like if that works really well, which I actually think it might. The more I've thought it through, I think it will. That's going to be dangerous for the West. So yeah, I want to do the Celtics, but I'm going to go Bear. And can the Timberwolves work? Because if they can, that's scary.
Yeah,
So,
I had. Go on.
I was going to say, I was just going to roll onto some honourable mentions, but say what you were going to say, mate.
I had Ant Edwards as the swing player, but I literally prefaced the little 5 to 6 lines of, let's be honest, the big factor is how Gobert fits alongside Cat. And you're right. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, oh, I mean, it could work, even if they do a bit of Brody Grundy, Max Gorn, and just deploy one of them at a time, and occasionally two of them are in the similar spot. I think it'll fucking work. Yeah. What
What
other
this
honorable
whole
mentions you have?
exercise has taught me is that there's a lot of very interesting storylines. One that jumps out for me, and then it leads on to another is, can a US player win MVP ever again? I don't know. Because let's be honest, Luka's the odds-on favorite, and that sort of goes on to, like, what the hell is James Harden going to do in Philly?
Yep.
You know, is he going to be this selfish, greedy player, or is he going to step aside and let Joel and let Maxi and the other players around him sort of play well? What other ones have you got?
I had both those ones you mentioned, but I also had, is this Greg Popovich's last hurrah? Because
it's a good one.
I thought he was going to retire like 2 or 3 years ago, but still, the bloke is kicking.
I think he's just going to keep playing, keep coaching, mate.
I mean, checks out. The other one I had was Denver's healthy quest to win it all.
Yeah,
like if
that's the
obviously
last
they
one
get
I
all
had.
the boys together, can they make a run at it? I had the Clippers, I had Zion, I had the Gobert fit. So yeah, I feel like we covered most of them, but you're right. We could go in fucking 40 different directions. There's a lot of storylines in this league.
That's a hard list to split, that one.
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
don't know how you vote for a winner here, but
No.
hey, I guess we'll put it to the sports be faithful and we'll figure it out.
Give it a whirl, guys. Good luck.
All right, passing couple of seconds. Which pick do you want in the draft? Because pick 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 are gone, and it's up to you to choose.
Geez. Text me. I don't know. It's hard. I actually missed that. Sorry.
All right. I won't put you on the spot and get you on the air. Thanks for sitting down, JLo. Another pinging pod. Great work by the
Cheers, mate.
boys. I will chat to you in the near future.